Coming up this week on Sporting Journal Radio.
If you can find one of those little spots, it seems to make a crucial difference in how many you can put in the boat.
All expectations are it's going to be an incredible opener.
They launch themselves so far out of the water that you can't be they got to be thinking, yes! Yeah!
I fish, I hunt, and always will. Broadcasting from the Eau Claire Outdoors Studios. Presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. We're not just a radio show anymore. This is Sporting Journal Radio. That's right. Welcome to the show. I'm Bret Amundson, along with the mustache over there, Dan Amundson. Dan, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. Now, we're here to talk about the latest in the outdoors in Minnesota, the Dakotas, Wisconsin, and beyond. And this week, we're going to talk about sturgeon because we had good news with sturgeon not being put on the endangered species list. The sturgeon fishing is unreal, and more people are getting into it. So we're going to break down everything there is to know about fishing for sturgeon up on the Rainy River with the Royal Dutchman himself, Kevin Heinrichs. He's going to join us later in the show. Joe Henry is going to be with us as well, too, to talk about Lake of the Woods as we gear up for the fishing opener. We'll talk a little bit about Minfish. The summit's coming up. We've got some videos for you to watch. There's also some bills that were in the news lately regarding delisting wolves, protections in the boundary waters, lead ammo ban. We'll tell you what's going on with those coming up. And we have a pooping log story.
Huh?
Yep. Dan, who are the sponsors this week on the show?
Invergrove Toyota, the official truck sponsor of Fish Hunt Forever, is Invergrove Toyota. When looking for your new rig, head over to Invergrove Toyota. Lake of the Woods Tourism. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital. Plan a trip for this open water season at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. OnX Hunt, landowner information, public land access, and much more. Know where you stand with OnX Hunt. Tasman Lake Lodge. Catch world record lake trout and giant pike at Saskatchewan's Tasman Lake. Learn more at tasmanlake.com. Prairie Sportsman, the new season is wrapping up, but you can watch all of our episodes anytime at the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel. And Haybale Heights Campground and Resort. Can't have a summer without going to Devil's Lake. Fish Devil's Lake. Learn more at haybaleheights.com.
And, of course, Fish Hunt Forever is our main company right now, bringing you Sporting Journal Radio. Dan, I feel like we've been fishing a lot, but it seems like fishing season is almost officially here.
I feel like you and I have different definitions of fishing a lot then, if you think we've been fishing a lot.
Well, relatively speaking, like this time of year, it's kind of that break time. Walleyes are closed. You're gearing up for the traditional walleye opener, the fishing opener in May. Yet we went out to Niagara River and did some fishing out there recently, which you can watch that video on the Fish Hunt Forever YouTube channel. If you want to know anything about the Niagara River, or if you're like, Niagara what? Niagara Falls, Niagara River, watch this video. It'll become a destination that you want to go fish at. And, of course, we were at Lake of the Woods right before that, fishing the Rainy River. So, I don't know. I mean, do you normally fish a lot this time of year?
Yeah, I mean, I've had summers or springs where, we were down in Red Wing 5 days a week from the beginning of March to the middle of April to, kind of till I started to turkey hunt. So I don't know, I guess we've taken a couple trips, but I had a lot of bigger plans for this spring, and then things just haven't worked out.
Yeah. You were going to go fishing while I was turkey hunting the other day.
Yeah, I'd like to have a lot of fishing done, but we're having some mechanical issues. So and the weather's terrible. Weather's been awful. There's a lot of rain, kind of windy, very windy, not kind of windy. So we're just putting some of that on hold and getting some things done.
I saw Tim DeMail from Fine Line Outdoors was fishing down by Red Wing, probably like you were talking about, somewhere down there in the river, I'm sure. He said the walleyes they caught, he posted this on Wednesday, so it was either Tuesday or Wednesday this week. The walleyes were in all stages of spawn. He had a big sauger that was in the picture. She was dropping eggs. The fish are finishing up the spawn. There's a lot of great fishing post-spawn starting to happen. So that's kind of what is Tim's report anyway from down on the Mississippi River. Dan, are you excited for the opener?
If I have a running boat when the opener shows up and a running truck, then yeah, I will be. But, just again, one of those things, just have a lot of things to get done before then. It's coming up in 1 week. So we got a lot to do before then, but once Friday rolls around, hopefully I will be excited for it.
That was a bad deal. You had problems with your truck and your boat on the same day.
Yeah, same day, same week. And it's never good timing when that stuff happens. And it happens to be right around the fishing opener when I'd like to be hitting the road.
Well, you know what you should do is hit the road to Invergrove Heights and check out a new Toyota Tundra at Invergrove Toyota, the official truck sponsor of Fish Hunt Forever and Sporting Journal Radio. They got a new Tundra Limited Crew Max. It's very similar to the official Fish Hunt Forever truck. It's got a lift kit. It's got a tonneau cover. It's a celestial silver metallic color. 22 miles per gallon on the highway, 17 in the city. It's a V6 twin turbo. So I think it's 3.6 liter, I believe, is what it is. But man, this thing, like my truck, you look at the gas pedal, you're getting whiplash, man. That thing will move, and I think towing capacity is 11,000 pounds on it. So go into Invergrove Toyota right now, tell them Fish Hunt Forever sent you, or use the link at sportingjournalradio.com. You'll get some money off. They're also offering $1,000 customer cash right now at Invergrove Toyota, and another $250 off using the Fish Hunt Forever code FHF. Find out all the details at sportingjournalradio.com. Right now, it's time for headlines. Headlines. That's right. The annual Minfish Summit is coming up this week, Tuesday, May 7th. We'll be there in attendance. Brad Parsons and Sarah Stroman are going to be talking. It's at the Drury Plaza Hotel this year, and there's a chance to mingle with some legislators as well, too. Dan, I'm not completely sure what they're going to talk about this year at the summit. Have you seen any sort of agenda or anything?
I have not gotten that far.
How much?
One day at a time here in Dan's world.
How much do you think Mille Lacs and Red Lake will come up in discussion?
You know, it might or it might not. There might just not be that much to talk about right now. You know, like kind of like the same reason that town hall got canceled up in Waskish a couple weeks ago. It might be the same thing. Like, what exactly are we going to talk about? Do we have any new information to really hash out? So it, you know, maybe or maybe not. If there's nothing new, I think we're all kind of on this, like the people who are going to be at Minfish, that summit, besides legislatures, there might be a lot of private conversations about it. But as far as the summit agenda goes, unless there's new information to talk about, it might not be heavy topics at all. Well,
and they may not be prepared to talk about that. Well, they may not put that on the agenda, but if there's any Q&As, I bet the topics might come up. We'll see. Four bills passed the U.S. House, removing mining restrictions near the boundary waters, delisting gray wolves, blocking federal bans on lead ammo, and withdrawing conservation leases on BLM lands. Now, the Senate is not expected to pass any of these bills, so a lot of these are being looked at as what's the word I'm looking for? Symbolic in a sense. The Republicans passed this, I guess, and Democrats likely won't. And I go, like, this is the problem with the Republicans a lot of times. It's like sometimes they invite, you know, like, I get it, job creation versus conservation. It's I see both sides of it, but generally in that sense, I land on the conservation side of things. So I didn't really like some of this, but they're also trying to delist gray wolves, which I think we need to have. So it was kind of interesting, but either way, it doesn't look like anything's going to change because of this. But some of those bills were passed by the U.S. House. Coming up here in Minnesota, Saturday, May 11th through Sunday, May 12th, is the Minnesota Moms Fishing Challenge. It's a 2024 Minnesota Moms Fishing Challenge, a free virtual fishing challenge during Take a Mom Fishing Weekend. This year, like every other year on Mother's Day weekend, all moms across Minnesota can fish for free without a license. The DNR introduced the Minnesota Moms Fishing Challenge for the first time last year for moms who want even more fun, according to the website. Last year, more than 2,400 Minnesota moms joined the challenge. It's a collaboration between the DNR, the Student Anglers Organization, and Women Anglers of Minnesota. Participation in the fishing challenge is free. It's on Facebook. It's open to moms statewide. There's a Facebook group if you want to take part in it. Just join the challenge Facebook group. All right. Speaking of Minfish, we have our final episode of Prairie Sportsman coming up this Sunday night on Pioneer PBS at 7:30. It'll also be available on the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel. It's all about the organization, what it's advocating for. And then Mark Colson actually took us for a tour of the St. Paul hatchery. Now that hatchery, Dan, what was it, over 100 years, if I remember right?
Yeah, I can't
Something
remember.
like that. It's been around for a long time and is in desperate need of some renovations. And that was one of the things that Minfish advocated for was money set aside for hatcheries and the hatchery upgrades as well as boat accesses and things like that. So Minfish got pretty busy in the last year, and thankfully the state had some money to spend. So they went out there and said, this is what we need them spent on. So learn more about Minfish on Prairie Sportsman this Sunday night. Plus, I'm not even sure what the right word. I'm just struggling with words today, but there's outdoor therapy being offered at the Mayo Clinic. So it's all about helping people through stress and PTSD and things like that by taking them outside. There's one study that showed exposure to nature can regulate the sympathetic nervous system in as little as 5 minutes. Research also indicates that exposure to nature can be an effective coping strategy for those with chronic mental health conditions, including depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I mean, we've been saying that for years, right? I mean, it's not really a secret. It's interesting that the medical community is actually getting behind this. But what do we always tell people, Dan, when things aren't going your way? Go outside, go fishing, go hunting. If you can get your truck and
So I'd go inside when my boat's not working.
get your boat to work and get your truck to work. But that's pretty interesting that it's actually now an offered therapy plan. I still can't think of the right word for it. Plan or a medical treatment. How about that? There we go. Outdoor therapy treatment being offered at Mayo. All right. This wins the internet for today. I just saw this right before we started the show. It's a pooping log. And not only is that funny in itself, but the caption is, it's not the best outhouse I've seen, but it's a solid number 2. Thank you very much. Now, that's not even the funniest part about this. If you find this, it's a Woodworking for Beginners, I think, group on Facebook. If you go find the post, the first comment that comes up is from a woman asking how guys position their body parts when they sit on this log. I'm not going to go in any more detail than that. I will say, though, that there's over 300 replies to her comment, and most of them are lyrics to The Gambler from Kenny Rogers. So
That's
it's kind of hilarious, and you'll go down the internet rabbit hole of the pooping log if you find that on Facebook. All right, coming up, we got the videos for you to watch, including a webcam, Big Pike in Sweden, and a new Tasman TV episode. Plus, the Royal Dutchman himself, Kevin Heinrichs, is going to join us, Joe Henry, and we'll kind of figure out just where this year ranked for sturgeon and walleye fishing up on the Rainy River, and is the best yet to come. It's all coming up on Sporting Journal Radio. Now is the time to start thinking about chasing big walleyes on Devil's Lake. Get on the fish at Haybale Heights Campground and Resort. Haybale Heights makes it easy for you to make memories on legendary Devil's Lake with guided fishing and lodging packages. Or bring your own boat and rent one of their cabins on East Bay. Haybale Heights offers a private marina, fish cleaning station, and the opportunity to relax and enjoy your bucket list trip to Devil's Lake, North Dakota. To book your trip, visit haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. We're back on Sporting Journal Radio. Thanks for tuning in on the radio network or maybe watching this on YouTube. And don't forget, you can get the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, wherever. We've got Joe Henry and Kevin Heinrichs coming up. We'll talk about the Rainy River and sturgeon fishing and some other stuff coming up later in the show. But right now, we're going to talk about some videos to watch here on Sporting Journal Radio, including Video of the Week. The Big Bog State Park Rec Area webcam. I didn't know about this, Dan. Did you know about this?
no, I didn't.
Okay, good.
I was going to try to say more, and I realized I didn't have anything to say, so I stopped talking.
Perfect. This started streaming, I guess, in February of 2023. Now, there may have been some issues, so maybe it hasn't been streaming this whole time. But basically, this sits up on top of that fire tower at the Big Bog State Rec Area. It's a 100-foot fire tower, and it overlooks Red Lake. So it's actually a chance to look at Upper Red from a webcam at all times. I had no idea this was a thing, which I think is kind of cool. That area is one of the first district ranger locations developed in the 1920s. The site was chosen because of its accessibility to a state highway, its elevated land, and its unrestricted view in all directions. This fire tower was built in 1937, and it was built to be identical to a previous tower located on the same site. So apparently there was another tower there right before that. But that's pretty cool. So if you want to take a look at what Red Lake is like, maybe see how the wind is there, ice conditions, wind conditions, things like that, you can pull up a webcam anytime you want to. I did notice that the comments were turned off on that YouTube video. I wonder why that would be. I wonder what kind of comments they were getting that they had to turn that camera off. Have you ever thought about going to Sweden to fish, Dan?
Finland. You know, like with Rapala being over there, I thought that'd be kind of a cool fishing trip, but obviously haven't ever done it.
Well, Sean Witt, he was on our show a few years back, and I had come across him on Instagram, and he was just catching these monster pike. He's from the Netherlands, and he fishes over there a lot. They catch big pike, zander, big perch. I think there's a big catfish over there, but I think he's mainly a pike guy. I think Savage sponsors him, and he's got a YouTube channel called White Label Fishing. He's gone up to Sweden a couple of times and done some filming up there, and he just put out a new video. I can't remember what it's called now.
This ... was rough.
That's what it was.
Exclamation point.
All
caps.
It was rough. If you watch it, the weather conditions that they had to put up with were pretty tough. But they managed to catch some nice fish. And they had one pike that they caught that they figured was the tail was bit off by a seal. I can't say I've ever caught a fish. So I'm like, I bet a seal bit that off. I thought it was pretty cool. They have one pike that they show that has like a blue glare to it. So not only are the markings on these pike over there really neat, but there's some interesting color tints to them as well. And it's cold. They deal with some snow. They deal with some wind. And not only is fishing tough in situations like that, but I bet filming was kind of painful. So it's pretty cool. White Label Fishing. They got a couple of buddies that they film there with and contribute to that channel. Sean's been doing it for a long time. He's a pretty interesting guy and catches some giant fish. So check that out. And then we just launched a new Tasman TV video on the Tasman Lake Lodge YouTube channel. We spent some time there with the crew from Linder Media. Dan, we've been going up to Tasman for a while. It's always a good time. We have a lot of fun, but that was a fun trip with those guys up there last year.
Yeah, good dudes. Jeff Simpson, Jeremy Smith, Mike Hayner, good dudes, good anglers, fun to hang out with at the end of the day and fun to be in a boat with.
For sure. Now and we spent 2 days on the road going up there, which was probably half the fun and one of the reasons why we had so much fun with them. But they filmed a Linder's Angling Edge and Canadian Experience show. They've already aired this year. Maybe you saw one on TV. The Canadian Experience episode you can see on their YouTube channel. And then we did one other Tasman TV video with those guys that came out earlier this year as well, too. But in this one, we hear from Jeremy Smith himself about why he's wanted to come to Tasman Lake Lodge for a long time. So you can watch that now on the Tasman Lake Lodge YouTube channel. Check it out. It's big pike. It's big lake trout. And it's such a unique place. Like, Dan, when you flew into Tasman for the first time, what did you think?
This is really cool. I mean, that's about all there is to think. It's I had expectations, right? Because I've only seen your videos and pictures from there a gazillion times. So I kind of knew what to expect, but even so, it was just still like, holy cow, this is just really cool landscape. Unique.
It's beautiful. Big hills, sand beaches. It's a lot of rock, and then a lot of sand. And it's just such a deep lake. Like there's a 900-foot hole out there, a lot of stretches of 300 to 400 feet, and then just home to some big fish. And Dan, I think one thing that really sets that lake apart, obviously there's no commercial netting on it. There's very little fishing pressure. Really, obviously we catch and release, so all the big fish go back. But I think when you talk about fishing pressure and how that can affect a fishery, I think that's such a major thing when it comes to like a body of water, Tasman. It's so hard to get in and out of that it keeps a lot of anglers, away in the commercial netting. Obviously, that happens in lakes all over Canada. And Saskatchewan's got commercial netting in almost all their lakes except Tasman. And it hasn't been that way for, I think, the 1936 or the 1950s. They set that area aside and made it a special management zone. And it's actually an impoundment. So there's technically a dam, and this ton. The history of this area is so neat. But I think that, that fishing pressure makes such a big deal up there, Dan, about why it's so good when we go.
Well, and yeah, you even take other lakes that have healthy fish, fish populations and big fish. But if that lake is seeing 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 people coming through there, or trips coming through there, or whatever, Tasman just doesn't see that pressure. So the fish that are there don't get smart to lures. They don't get as smart to fish. I mean, yeah, they're still fish. They're still wild animals. So you run a boat over them, they're going to spook. But they still might not bite your lure. But either way, you're not dealing with such like super finicky fish that you might see even on a lake that has a ton of fish, but still sees fishing pressure. Even if if you have a lake that is only catch and release and sees a bunch of people, those fish are going to get smart to hooks. I don't think they really like getting hooked and brought up to a boat, even if they get put back. I don't think they like that, so they don't want to do it again. So yeah, you limit, not limit, but you just don't have the amount of people running through there.
You don't think it's like going to Valley Fair? It's like a ride for them?
I like breathing, and I can breathe on every roller coaster I've ever been on. I don't know. Do you like just sitting underwater for a period of time you can't control?
Not really, I guess.
Which I don't know. I don't think a fish enjoys just being in a boat.
Oh, no. I wasn't thinking about being out of the water in the boat. I was thinking about just the whole fight and the whole battle going up. But, some adrenaline junkie lake trout up there at Tasman Lake, maybe. I don't know. And that trip with the Lindner crew, they filmed the first couple of days. They filmed Lindner's Angling Edge, and you and I filmed for Tasman TV and fished together. And then the last couple of days, I jumped in a boat with Jeff Simpson and Mike Hayner, and then you fished with Jeremy Smith for a couple of days.
Yep.
And got to just kind of have him just kind of tool around and break down the water a little bit. What did you learn sitting in the boat with Jeremy for a couple of days up there?
Yeah, Jeff and Jeremy like to make their own crankbaits, so they had some custom-built cranks that they were trying to run, and we were running them similar ways that we ran our baits. But it was cool to just kind of see what they've seen in other spots. They had some just massive crankbaits that they've made, and they caught fish on it. It was kind of cool to see some of that. White was still king out of everything. You think of a lake trout, and white was still, I think white might be the best color in fishing overall for any species. But
well, when I just mean like spending time, I know when we were at Northwest Sports Show maybe this year, I can't remember which sports show it was, a bunch of us ended up meeting up after the day got over. We got done working our booze, and we met up with Jeremy, and he just started, I bet for like close to an hour, we just kind of sat and talked about fishing in Minnesota and regulations and what needs to happen, what doesn't need to happen. And we just picked his brain. Like, that guy has got some serious fishing knowledge, especially when you talk about Minnesota fishing.
Yeah, and get him started on muskie fishing, and
yeah,
that's his jam there. So you can get him on a rant about muskies. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, good dude, very smart. All right, so watch for that Tasman TV episode right now on the Fish Hunt. This will be on the Tasman Lake Lodge YouTube channel. I forget, we run so many YouTube channels now. I forget which one sometimes we put videos on. But go check out the Tasman Lake Lodge YouTube channel, the Fish Hunt Forever YouTube channel, the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel, which our final episode of the season is coming up. And then, of course, the Sporting Journal Radio YouTube channel, which you might be watching right now. We're going to take a quick break and come back with Joe Henry. Stay there.
852 million acres of public land, 147 million private properties,
all in the palm of your hand. The #1 hunting GPS app just got better. With hundreds of custom map layers, 3D and topographic maps, you can easily scout on the road or at home before you go. And now you can get important weather details, CWD detection, and even know what crops have been planted where. Get the most trusted hunting GPS app ever made. OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. All right, now we're going to head up to Lake of the Woods to check in with Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism. Joe, how's it going?
Hey, Brett, I'm doing good, man.
Hey, looks like you're working today.
Yeah, well, sometimes I won't show you what I work at. When you work from home, sometimes it might be in a baseball cap and a sweatshirt. But no, I got my fishing shirt on today. It's I do some AIS training in central Minnesota. Some of the high school fishing teams, we go in and we teach them about aquatic invasive species, and how to clean, drain, and dry a boat, why we do it. And, if I talk about AIS, nobody'd come. So we kind of disguise it. We call it Fish Like a Pro. We talk about fishing and fishing tips, and then we slide the AIS in kind of sneakily, but they know it's part of AIS. But we also talk about different things too, about protocol when you go to a boat ramp, and if you're fishing docks, how to have some couth. If you're buzzing across the lake, don't go buzzing through the boats that are fishing. Stay way away from them, and just these are impressionable high school anglers, and we want to get them going on the right foot, right?
I saw a video on Instagram, I think the other day in Reels, of a guy fishing a dock, and as soon as he got close to the dock, a sprinkler turned on.
Yeah.
It started spraying him from the dock. So I don't know if it's a motion activated sprinkler, or if somebody's sitting on his porch up in the house watching the.
Well, normally when you watch those videos, it's somebody coming down from a cabin or a house yelling at them, but they can't fish that water, and then gets into that old debacle. But
crazy.
Yeah, this is more just about having good manners, and some of the manners have to be taught, right? Like when you're getting ready to drop your boat in, make sure that that's where you get everything ready to roll. So when you get up in line, you can drop it in, and you need to give somebody else a helping hand, and all those things that makes our life go better. Everybody's always watching. So if you represent a school or a fishing club or just yourself, reputation's everything.
I think it's kind of amazing that you don't hear about AIS as much in a place like Lake of the Woods that sees so many boats coming in and out of it, Joe.
Well, we have so I would say this: we have the same group that does our Keep It Clean up at Lake of the Woods does AIS, so we're active, and we have a lot of inspectors and advertising and promotions to be thinking about that. Now, up at Lake of the Woods, we do have aquatic invasive species. We have the spiny water flea, in our lake, and then we've also found zebra mussel veligers. Now, veligers are the larvae, but we've never found so far the adult shell or the adult form, and we're hoping we don't. One of the theories is that we may not get those at all because we don't have the calcium levels in our water to grow those shells as readily, and we hope that's the case.
Yeah, that would be nice, because it's kind of amazing when you hear about what bodies of water have adult zebra mussels in them now. It's kind of amazing that Lake of the Woods doesn't, so it's great news. One other thing you don't hear about as much as, say, walleye or sturgeon is the pike fishing up there. There's a recent pike tournament that just took place, Joe.
Yeah, Zippel Bay has an annual pike tournament every year, and it's a 2-day tournament over the weekend, just after ice is out. And, those the pike season on Lake of the Woods, it's a year-round season, never closes. You can keep 3 pike per day. 30 to 40-inch pike have to go back, a protected slot. You can keep 1 over 40 inches if you want one for the wall. So they do a pike tournament, and Zippel Bay is one of the bays that those pike go back and spawn. And Zippel Bay is one of the areas, 4 Mile Bay, Bostic Bay, and any kind of backwater. And a lot of times what those big pike will do, Bret, is they'll go back in Zippel Bay, but then a lot of times some of them will actually continue on into back ditches and stuff, along roads. And they'll get way back in there and do their spawning. And they had a good turnout. They had a good tournament this year. I know they got a lot of big pike again. And it's just kind of one of those things. It's fun. You go back in those bays and, it's small water. You can have a 14-foot boat if you want to back in those bays. It's like a small inland lake, and a lot of pike. Some people fish it with dead bait. Some people troll crankbait. Some people cast, spinners and slow roll those. And I know some people are using forward-facing sonar now looking for those pike. And so it's kind of a neat little tournament that it's one of the first tournaments of the year. Other than on the river,
I bet that'd be a blast up there. I know you get some pretty big pike, and I wonder how. There's some size to some of those bays, but it looks like a lot of boats getting packed in there.
Yeah, but Zippel Bay is pretty long bay. When if you've ever driven like the ice road out to the Igloo Bar, you're in that bay for quite a long time. You got the state park. There's a lot of shoreline, a lot of water, and there's some fingers that go off of it too. So you'd be surprised actually how big. It's not big water, but it's a big bay. It's long and kind of narrow. It's fun. I've taken the media in there before, even in the summertime, and pulled cranks. And you catch your pike, and every once in a while you get surprised and catch a 25-inch walleye in there. Deepest spot is around 8 feet of water on a normal year, and it's interesting. But same thing with 4 Mile Bay that comes out of the Rainy River, and even Bostic Bay. People don't realize it, but in the summertime there's some nice walleyes that hang out in those bays towards the lake. There's current, the water's stained. There's bait. I mean, it's kind of it can be a really good fishing spot, and certainly a nice option when it's really blowing out.
Well, we definitely caught a few pike and a couple of nice ones in the river, and we were up there for the SJR 500, and they were kind of nice bonus fish for us. We were there targeting walleye, and I know that's been closed now, but it's almost ready to open back up there, Joe.
May 11th. May 11th is a fishing opener, and our walleye season, because it's extended, only closes for like a month, and April 14th is the last day you can fish walleyes on Lake of the Woods and the Rainy River. And then, of course, this year, the fishing opener for Minnesota is May 11th. And Bret, all expectations are it's going to be an incredible opener. I mean, we left those fish in March when we quit ice fishing, and those fish are loaded across that South Shore, just loaded. Right now, as we speak, I'm having resorts and guides that are fishing sturgeon telling me about how they're catching 29 and 30-inch walleyes on sturgeon gear. Those walleyes are taken in the big glob and neck crawlers that they're using for sturgeon. So I thought that's kind of fun. And so we know there's fish in the river right now, and we figured there would be by opener. So it's going to be good fishing. Of course, we got the angle, and I never want to forget about the angle. I mean, that place is always loaded with walleyes. That's where the 14,552 islands of our lake begin. There's so much structure and just there's just fish loaded up there. A lot of fishing happens in the angle. We're set, man. It should be a really good opener. And I'll tell you, jigging is going to be the way most people are going to be fishing. They're going to be using a jig and a minnow. They're going to go out. They're going to anchor up or spot lock in their favorite location, and they're going to drop over the side of a boat a jig and a frozen emerald shiner, and it's going to be game on.
The angle, I think, would be a fun place to spend the fishing opener. I think that'd be a blast to go up there. I mean, Lake of the Woods, I know a lot of people have their traditional spots for the opener. I'm still trying to figure out where I'm going to go. Dan's going to be with his family, his dad, and they got their places that they go. I know a lot of people kind of have their traditional spots, but man, it'd be nice to, especially if the fishing is as good as it was when we left there just a couple of weeks ago. It'd be hard not to go right back up there when it opens up again.
Those fish are there. I mean, that's the thing, and they're loaded. Those fish. Some of those, you talked about the fish in the river that we caught just a few weeks ago, and some of those fish will stay in the river. Some of those fish will make their way out to the lake and filter back in, and it's just kind of a neat little process. The bottom line is a lot of fish around, and you talk about the angle. I mean, it was just wasn't that long ago I shot a TV show with Larry Smith, and it was earlier in the year. I think it was in June, and we were fishing an area up there called Flag Island Flats, and gosh, we had probably 6 boats around us. Everybody was catching walleyes. And then we were going for pike to mix it up because we had plenty of walleyes. So we put on crankbaits. We trolled that area with cranks. And sure enough, I whacked a good one. And I kicked myself for not measuring it, but I know it was over 45. It was a big fish. And we got that in. At the time, we'd forgotten our net in the fish cleaning shack from the night before. So we had no net. So we had to grab that fish. So Larry went down and grabbed that fish, and we lifted that big behemoth in, and it was a good fish. And I'll tell you, when you're trolling and pulling cranks, and you stick a good northern, it's like, okay, you stick that fish, and it's just like a log. You just hang on to it, like, come with me, don't be a rock, come with me. And it comes with, and then you, for the first couple of head shakes, you're like, okay, this is a real deal,
Well, then sometimes even when you catch small fish, when you're still trolling, if the boat doesn't stop moving, that fish is twice as big as it is just because you're pulling against a trolling motor too. So I can imagine pulling cranks and catching a fish like that. That was probably a fun fight.
Well, we put on a little bit bigger cranks, targeting some pike, right? Couldn't keep the walleyes off. Nice walleyes kept whacking the bigger cranks. It just goes to show. I mean, yeah, I know. When you're going for pike, though, it's like, but then we got what we were looking for, and it just goes to show too, though. Up on Lake of the Woods, we talk about jigging for walleyes, and that's how most people are going to do it. You know what? If a person wanted to pull spinners, probably going to catch some fish. If a person wanted to cover water and pull cranks, probably going to catch some fish. I mean, there's fish to be had in a number of different ways, and I think the other thing is too. Some people will be picking off big schools of walleyes and saugers. Heck, there'll be other people that'll be trolling out in front of Pine Island. Some people will be trolling the banks of the Rainy River. I mean, there's so many different spots these walleyes and saugers live. It's one of the things that makes it kind of interesting.
And we just got about a minute left here, Joe, but I don't know how much rain you guys have gotten up there right now. I know here where I'm at, we've gotten a pile of rain here in the last week. So everything is wet. There's some current. Water levels are up a little bit. If there's a little more current up at the Rainy, of course, you're going to have to use some heavier jigs, things like that. And I think people downsize a lot when they fish. but I've been going the other way, particularly because I've been targeting bigger fish. I think sometimes going bigger can be more successful.
I think it can be. I'll say this. The rule of thumb with jigging is use as light a jig as you possibly can for the conditions. And conditions would be how deep you're fishing, how windy it is, right? And if there's current. Well, on Lake of the Woods, because we have that stained water, you can get away with using a heavier jig. And especially vertical jigging, we're not necessarily casting and working it in. We're just right over the side of the boat. Using a heavier jig, you have more control. You can thump that baby on the bottom, which is an attractor in that lateral line of a walleye. And, I think for people that don't fish very much, it's a lot easier jigging with a heavier jig. You know where you're at.
You can feel the bottom. Yeah, for sure. All right, Joe. Well, if people want to get up there maybe for the opener or plan a summer trip to Lake of the Woods, the Angle, the Rainy River, wherever, what should they do?
Hey, check out our website, and that is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
If you want to catch a big walleye, go where the big walleyes are. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital of the world, with a variety of resorts and lodging facilities offering full-service fishing. Lake of the Woods is also home to sturgeon, sauger, perch, trophy pike, muskie, smallmouth bass, burbot, and more. Plan your trip to Lake of the Woods today. Go to lakeofthewoodsmn.com. That's lakeofthewoodsmn.com. All right, this is Sporting Journal Radio. Thanks for tuning in on the radio network, by demand, sportingjournalradio.com, wherever you get your favorite podcasts, or by watching this on YouTube. Thank you very much. Now we're going to go up to Lake of the Woods, actually the Rainy River, and check in with the Royal Dutchman. I don't know why I have to, I wrote something down here about this because I knew I was going to start getting into pirate talk. So I apologize for any sort of Pirates of the Caribbean references I might make, because whenever I think of the Royal Dutchman, I think of pirates and Pirates of the Caribbean. So Kevin Heinrichs is with us right now, the Royal Dutchman on the Rainy River. Kevin, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Obviously,
another day in paradise.
Yeah. You love it up there, don't you?
Hey, I can't get enough of it. This dream started a long time ago for me.
Yeah, go ahead. How long have you owned that resort up there?
So we're going on 5 years now. We've owned the Royal Dutchman, and it's been a fun journey, and it's definitely been a calling for life for me. I don't really see myself doing anything else ever again.
Yeah, what made you? I mean, were you fishing the Rainy? Did you live up there? Were you into sturgeon before you started running the resort?
So, like I said, this dream started a long time ago. I was 10 the first time that I came up to Lake of the Woods. And after that trip, we went ice fishing. It was over New Year's and New Year's Day. The trip itself, we didn't catch all that many fish and whatnot, just the whole experience of the lifestyle up here that I saw. I guess it just blew me away. Like I tell all my guests, in the wintertime when I cross Pine Island, I'm 10 years old again. Vividly, I could see what I saw that day.
That's
I
awesome.
told my dad I left a piece of myself up here that I probably was never going to be able to get back up. Out there, just have to move up here. And it took a lot of years, but we made it happen.
So that's something you've wanted to do for a long time then?
Yeah, oh yes, definitely. It was, people got destiny. I guess this was mine.
Well, I can think of worse places to end up.
Hey.
You know? So was it, going back to when you were 10 to where you are now, I mean, it's been fun to watch that sturgeon, not only the sturgeon fishery itself, just keep growing and growing and getting healthier and healthier, but the popularity of fishing for them has grown quite a bit since then, hasn't it?
Oh, definitely. For me, actually, I'll always tell people it was the walleyes that drugged me up here, but it's the sturgeon that carried me away adamantly. When I had it in my backyard and the opportunity just to, that's unreal. I mean, the fishery itself is exponentially amazing. I think it's the greatest lake sturgeon fishery in the lower 48. And I talked with Joe Henry at one time before. Winnebago likes to tout itself as the sturgeon capital of the world, but I truly feel that Lake of the Woods definitely will be, if it isn't already, will be the sturgeon capital of the world.
That Bago fishery is an interesting one, but it's almost hard to compare the two because you can't fish for them there. You can spear
Right.
for them there, and there's definitely some big fish, and it's been managed for 100 years for sturgeon and for spearing sturgeon over there. But what's happened on the Rainy, I think, is it's not only a conservation success story, but man, the opportunity to catch a giant fish, the biggest fish in Minnesota, and the fact that you could catch a new state record, and the fact that you can catch as many of them. The amount of fish that got caught during our tournament, right before the end of the walleye season here in April, the SJR 500, like Jamie and Jesse, they had 50 fish. What was it? 50 fish, 50 sturgeon in 2 days in their boat, and they had some small ones, but the amount of fish over 50 inches, even over 60 inches. And now you guys know this better than I would, but in the last week, there's been a couple over 70 that have been caught up there. I mean, the amount of big fish is staggering.
Yeah, I actually had a guest catch a 70 1/4 right out front of the resort yesterday. I seen a 76 and I want to say like a 77 that were caught. I know of a couple of 73s with like 38-inch girth and a 40-inch girth that were caught. I mean, we're talking that's dang near 55-gallon barrel, big,
Jeez.
for size of these fish that were coming. Even that 70 1/4 had a 32-inch girth, and you're looking at over 100-pound fish there. It's really, truly amazing when you get one in the net and you get one in the boat and you get it in somebody's arms and you see the smile of satisfaction and the look of disbelief all at one time, And as far as fight goes, nothing pulls like a sturgeon does. I always tell guests that it's something that has to be felt. It cannot be explained, until you actually get one on the rod. You don't know what to expect.
They're so much fun, and even with the heaviest rod out there, they come up when they want to come up. They'll sit down there in the bottom of the river and roll and pull, and there's some. I mean, I'd still want to go up for a 30-inch walleye first, but sturgeon has become such a close second. And as soon, even this year when Dan and I were up there, as soon as walleye fishing started to slow down in the morning just a little bit, it's like, oh, should we go fish sturgeon? Are we ready to fish sturgeon yet? Should we go? And Jamie, my buddy Jamie Dittman, I remember being up there the first time I fished the Rainy in the spring, and this is, I don't know what this was, 10 years ago. And I couldn't catch a walleye to save my life. I've told this story before on this show, so I apologize, but I couldn't catch a walleye to save my life. And it was Jamie and David Wallin in the boat with us, and they were just, picking off fish left and right. And at this time, you could still keep some walleyes in the river. And so they had their fish, and I just couldn't catch one. And they had green jigs on, and I had just a different color green jig on. And finally, Jamie's like, "Take this jig, please. Just take this one." And I turned it on, and I had my fish in 5 minutes. Like, it was whack, 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 caught my fish. And Jamie was so happy because all he wanted to do was go sturgeon fishing. Like, the
Sounds
sturgeon
like Jamie
fishing
needs to get in my boat then.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Joe or Kevin, you guys can speak to this better too, how when it comes to how many anglers come up for walleyes versus how many anglers come up for sturgeon now, it's got to be, I'm sure walleyes are still winning, but it's got to be getting pretty close.
I will say primarily during the spring season till walleye closes, we're still predominantly walleye guys, but what I'll tell you about those walleye guys is they're apt to take a day and go sturgeon fishing now themselves. You know what I mean? Especially if the walleye fishing isn't what they expected it to be, it's, well, let's shift gears and give sturgeon a try. And honestly, some of that early season action as the ice is breaking away from the Rainy, you can see some pretty epic numbers of some pretty fair-sized fish. You can put 20 fish over 50 inches in the boat in a day and be darn tired at the end of it.
That's pretty wild, man. So what's the biggest sturgeon you've had in your boat then, in the warship?
71 and a half inches would be the biggest, and it had a 33-inch girth on it.
My gosh.
So actually, we caught a 70 and a half the day before that, but I've had many over 65 inches, a lot of 65 to 68 and a half, 69-inch fish. I mean, I've been talking with some guys that come up adamantly quite a bit, and it's like the 60 club isn't really a thing anymore. It's more of the 70 club. Don't get me wrong. There's some truly epic power behind a 60-inch fish. Any fish that starts to put some girth on it over 50 inches. I've had plenty of 55-inch fish fool me into thinking I had a mid-60s fish on, only to see this big toad up through up into the net.
Well, Dan caught a couple low 50s this year, and that one kind of kicked your backside a little bit.
They both did. I mean, I'm not the, I don't like to horse my fish, so maybe I just babied it. But yeah they're fun. God, they're fun.
We're gonna have to get you on the warship because our goal is to break the rod every time that we fight one, and we haven't managed to do it yet. But I got my drags pretty tuned up. We tune them down as needed, and we try to keep them at a point where you're not stressing your terminal tackle too much. Also, start to stress the fish too as well in some ways. So we want to make sure that this tradition and passion can be carried on, and that these beasts that can live up to 150 years get full opportunity to do so.
It's pretty amazing that we have all those fish up there and how well it's doing. What do you think the future is going to look like at the Rainy River for sturgeon?
Like I told you, it's going to be the sturgeon capital of the world. I could see it. I mean, the Winnebago system is much smaller than we are. So given time for the process to carry itself up, we were very heavily commercially fished too, and had some pollution issues for quite a while, but the fish all managed to make it through that. And now we're seeing the no commercial fishing. I mean, as far as we do have a harvest on Lake of the Woods, but as far as what we harvest, it's significantly nothing compared to what we allow potential to be there. And so, and it shows with management has come the management and the culture of the sturgeon fishermen too. The majority of the people just want to come up here and pass this memory on to somebody else. They lost their sturgeonity. They want to pop in somebody else's cherry. So to say, I guess, without being too raunchy about it.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you too, because as we get near the spring and we watch for the river to open up, obviously we want to come up and fish there. We have our tournament up there, so we're always watching the accesses open up and the river opening up. And those reports that you do, that stuff that you do there on the Facebook Lives and that stuff is priceless. We appreciate it.
So when we took the resort over, the people that owned it before said that, if you go check the river every once in a while, it gets it takes away from the phone calls that you get wondering what the river conditions are. And we just saw an opportunity to make sure that, everybody can plan their trip accordingly. It is a tough thing to plan, even still, as this year Mother Nature showed us that we can do all the reporting and daily reports that we want, but it will still throw us curveballs by opening the river wide open and then boom, freezing and dumping a bunch of snow that made a bunch of cloudy ice that seemed to never want to go away after that for a while. I felt like I was doing early ice reports again. Instead of people wondering when they could drive their pickup, they were wondering when they could back their boat in. And as you can see, springtime and the rainy, it's also about more than the fishing for some people. It's the adventure of being the first one on the water, even if you got to break through 3 inches of ice to do it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of wild how people will, drag their boat over the ice to be the first ones out there, and a lot of times they're rewarded for it. You got to be a special kind of fisherman to do that, I think, and have a light enough boat and not be afraid to get a little wet to go fish like that, which obviously can be a little dangerous at times too. So you got to be a little careful when you do that. But we were joking this year about being able to fish the lake during our tournament. What was it, April 9th and 10th this year? And yeah, obviously that didn't happen. Everything kind of froze back over. Although I guess we did fish outside the gap for a little bit. It wasn't open very far, but I guess we did fish out there a little. But
it did open up out on the lake before the close of walleye season this year. Not as much as it did the 3 years ago. It was open pretty good for quite a while out on the lake. So you had opportunities to come up and catch and keep fish out on the lake because it's open for keeping until April 14th.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. It's such a unique place and such a fun place to go. And man, fishing is always really good. And so how does your deal work? If people want to come up and jump in the warship with you or stay at your place, what do you got up at the resort there? What are the accommodations like, and how do they fish with you? So
we got 14 units up here. 5 of them are two bedroom villas, I'll call them. They're like 2-bedroom cabins, full kitchen, living room, and 2 bedrooms and bathroom. And then we have 9 motel units that are like hotel rooms. They got 2 queen-size beds in them, a desk, bigger refrigerators, coffee pots, and microwaves. And then we also have a community kitchen to accommodate the motel rooms as well if you want to bring stuff up and cook. gas grills and charcoal grills. As far as fishing with me goes, just get a hold of me and either give us a call, email us, Facebook. We're pretty easy to get a hold of.
At the Royal,
at the Royal Dutchman Resort, Facebook page, Royal Dutchman Resort website. You can leave us an email on there. And you can call us at 218-395-2126.
the Dutchman. So is that you answering the phone, or is it the Duchess answering the phone there?
Well, it'll be a combination of the two of us. I think you hope that the Duchess answers the phone, so everything's done right. She gives me crap all the time. I do have some scatteredness every once in a while, but like I tell her, when I get a call and I'm booking a room, I'm also getting a question about, what's the water clarity like out right there? What's the water temperature? How many did they catch today? How many bites? Where should I go? What's this landing looking like? So it tends to get to be a lot. So there's times I got to call a guy back and be like, you wanted to come on Thursday, right?
That's hilarious. And how often are you hearing howls up and down the river these days?
Daily. So it's been pretty good out in front of the resort. So I've been hearing a howl at least every hour, it seems like. And then anywhere that I drive up and down with the warship, we get some howls going, and we get a howl at people when they're hooked up. It's just it's a good way to interact with other fishermen and show how much fun you could truly have sturgeon fishing.
Absolutely. That's cool, man.
I kind of consider it like a biker gang kind of thing. We're all kind of intertwined together, because a big difference between sturgeon fishing and walleye fishing is when you got one fish on, the whole boat pretty much has that fish on at that moment in time. And it's a team effort for the most part to get that fish on. And it's almost funner when your buddy's hooked up, because like the guy with the mustache getting his ass kicked, you can sit and make fun of him the whole time that it's happening.
That's right.
Yeah, I'll hold the rod anytime if it means I catch the fish. I don't care if I get bit.
Well, just because you mentioned a mustache, all of a sudden Danny takes offense, thinks it's him.
Of course. Well, I got my butt kicked by a sturgeon, and I've got a mustache, so it's me.
Hey, it's a real man to admit it, and it happens more often than you think. I get a lot of guys in the boat that only want to catch one. They're good. I get a lot of guys that bring their wife up, and I can tell secretly they don't even care if they catch one. They just want to watch their wife get beat up by a really big fish. And honestly, they, by the end of it, manhandle those fish. I had a 78-year-old lady in my boat the other day that fought a fish better than some 40-year-old guys.
That's awesome. Well, Dan's mom caught a bigger sturgeon than he did this year.
Yeah, and she wasn't exhausted by it like I was.
That's great. I can't even make fun of you. I didn't catch one, so no. I can't even make fun of you for it. But
oh, geez, we got to change that.
Yeah. It was. I mean, I caught plenty of fish up there this year. I just didn't. I missed a couple fish. I think it was. I'm gonna blame it.
Don't set the hook with a circle hook.
I only did that the first time because out of habit. But after that, I think the difference that I did is I set it up with my clicker on, and I don't think.
So did I.
Oh, I didn't think you did.
Yeah, it just never pulled it.
Yeah. See, that was my problem. I think I missed some fish. I'm going to blame it on the gear.
Sure.
It's definitely operator error, but I'm going to blame it on the
I'm
gear.
not a circle hook guy. I run J hooks because I could vividly hear my uncle screaming at me as a kid, set the hook! So I have to set the hook all the time as well. And honestly, I personally prefer it for sturgeon because they don't often, like you said, if you put your bait clicker on, it doesn't mean that they're going to pop your bait clicker at all. These big fish can bite very light. Unlike flathead catfish, they don't run with it to where you just kick your clicker and start reeling instantly, you know. But I fish with guys that use both, and both work. So whatever one is comfortable and confident with is what I recommend using.
Yeah, and I remember when we fished with Darren Troseth, and we were ice fishing, but he said and we were using bobbers, he said if the bobber moves, there's a fish there. Like they're not going to take the bobber down. It's like you just see the bobber dance a little bit and there's a sturgeon on there. So it's I'm not going to say there's a big learning curve to sturgeon fishing, because I like to tell people it's pretty easy, really. You get heavy gear. It doesn't take really expensive gear. It doesn't take a whole lot of fishing knowledge. And it's some of the biggest fish and the hardest fighting fish that you'll ever catch. So I love it. I think it's a blast.
So honestly, Dad, I use ugly stick catfishing rods with not even an upgraded Akuma reel on it. But I mean, my whole setup per rod is like $100 with the line, rod, reel, tackle, and equipment. And I like to show people when they get on my boat that is, you nailed it right on the head, that it doesn't take, if you got a boat and you can buy a little bit of equipment. I don't even run a depth finder on my boat, to be honest with you. I see guys using their live scopes and their 360 imaging and stuff. A lot of times I can just look at the river because they like current seams and stuff like that. And I can say, right there is the spot that I want to set up at. I do have navionics on my phone that I run. But a lot of the spots that I have on there aren't necessarily hot spots. They're different points, different flow levels with where the current seam and all of that stuff has been before. Because, like I say, it can be difficult to see at times. But if you can get relatively close to that, it often can make all the difference in the world for how many sturgeon you put in the boat.
Well, when we were, oh, sorry, Joe, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I'm just going to ask a question because, people ask me all the time, where do you fish for sturgeon? And, the natural response is, you fish, in some of the holes in the river, and you fish in the upward slope of a hole, but you really take it to a much different level. I mean, you've talked to me about fishing flats and current seams, and can you just comment on where sturgeon live in the river?
So, I mean, as a guy, I spend a lot of time fishing in spots where I don't think there are fish. And you would be surprised at all of the different depths that vary from 4 feet to 30 feet of water where I have caught sturgeon. Like right now, just like the walleyes on the Rainy River, the sturgeon are scattered out a little bit more. They're not necessarily grouped in together because there isn't a whole lot of flow on the river, so they can go a lot of different places. But if you can find a spot where there is a little bit of, because there's varying degrees of flow on the Rainy. There's multiple seams sometimes in one little stretch of the river. If you can find one of those little spots, it seems to make a crucial difference in how many you can put in the boat, and how many are hanging out there as well. But otherwise, as far as around here, I look for holes, and then I look for like a nice gradual transition adjacent to that hole or near that hole, and it seems like that is where I'll find sturgeon feeding at a lot. And if I do fish a hole, usually I'll set up in the middle of the hole and drop a couple right down into it and drop a couple off to each side of it, trying to cover a spread.
And then, of course, the idea is that those sturgeon are going to get the scent of your worms, of your crawlers. And do you mix it up quite a bit with frozen emerald shiners with your crawlers, or do you pretty much stick to crawlers?
So especially like as the water temperature is cooler, it can be crucial to focus on more shiner than crawler at times. Really? Usually I will do a combo deal. I'll put a couple of shiners and a couple of worms on a couple of the rigs and then run all crawlers on others. Now, as we get into the summertime, like in the July season, I pretty much don't even bring shiners with me anymore at that point. I use all crawlers. So it seems like there's a varying degree on, like if I catch a sucker, I'll even cut sucker. It can work very well, especially if the suckers are running, because they'll take all of your crawler. You'll go through a whole flat of crawlers in a matter of hours if you're in the wrong spot.
Well, I think, Kevin, one thing you told me, too, that was kind of interesting is you said, one thing about it is when you're fishing the Rainy River for sturgeon, you will catch a wide variety of fish when you're out there.
Yep, the pretty cool thing about a sturgeon rig is it's about as basic fishing rig as you can. It goes back to the origins of fishing itself. It's a hook, it's a weight, it's some bait, and there's about everything under. I've caught as many as 12 species on when we've been out sturgeon fishing off of the same rig, from smallmouth bass, northern pike to P walleye, saugers, you name it down the line, bullhead. I couldn't even believe how many different types of fish there were in the Rainy River system until I started sturgeon fishing, I guess.
Well, it's kind of interesting, too, because you're talking about howling. And I don't know if all the listeners, Bret, really understand what that howling's all about. But, Kevin, basically...
we better hear it then. We should hear it. There it is.
So when you catch a sturgeon, you haul. And then, of course, when other people, they've learned from you that if they catch a sturgeon, they haul. So consequently, you can be on the Rainy River and you hear this howling going on. And those are people catching sturgeon.
Yeah, heck yeah. It lifted my spirits to no end. When I'm standing outside with the dogs and I hear somebody howling up the river or down the river or right in front of the resort, and then you hear multiple people. Like I've had where you've had 3 boats and they all 3 hook up at different variables during the same time, and it's just a howling fest going on out there. So,
That's awesome.
It just goes to show you that people are having fun is what it's all about at the end of the day. And that's another thing about sturgeon fishing for the avid, not the, average everyday fisherman is you can go out there, you can anchor up and you can settle down, relax, chew the fat. That's where I feel like as sturgeon, when I'm out there with clients, I get a different kind of connection with them than when I'm doing walleye trips or something like that, we can actually have time to sit and chew the fat, and I learn about my client fully. A lot of times, I can't tell you how many friendships I got from it.
It's such a social activity, guys. Like when we fished, when we switched over to sturgeon this year during the tournament, I mean, we had 5 or 6 of our buddies up there with their boats and, a couple guys in each boat, but we had 5 or 6 boats there and we all just anchored up right next to each other. And one guy had a Blackstone in the front of his boat and he made us all burgers, and then they delivered lunch to us out there. And there was probably 20, 30 boats anchored up in that spot, and they're all catching sturgeon, and I know you brought up electronics, and our buddy Jamie was next to us. He had his live scope pulled down, didn't even have the live scope on, but he had it down just because it was probably a habit to put it down.
I think it was getting in the way. It's like, let's get this in the water so it wasn't in the way in the boat.
and I had mine down for a little while just because, I'm not going to say it was helping us catch fish at all, but it was fun to see all the fish on there. And, where we were, there was just, there was probably suckers, maybe burbot, walleyes, northern, and of course sturgeon moving through there. And you could tell when they were sturgeon. And there was times, Dan, where we would see, 5, 6, 7 sturgeon on the screen at one time. It was crazy. So
right. They will school up in major groups. I'll talk about back when we had the high water, when we had the flood. Well, the slack water is where you were fishing for the walleyes and the sturgeon. That year was amazing for fishing on the river in the spring, in my eyes. I had a lot of people who said it wasn't very good because the traditional spots that they fished, they couldn't catch them where they wanted to catch them is what it came down to with a lot of them. But when you found one sturgeon, you found them all. And I mean, that one day in like 2.5 hours, I caught 12 of them that were over 60 inches, and just under 65 inches. We had days last year up at Manitou Rapids. For whatever reason, they were thick as thieves up in there. I think the one night, the 4 of us got 70 fish, with only 5 or 6 of them being under 65 inches. And most of them were over 60. We had one that was under 60 inches out of that whole trip. But I came home fairly defeated. My wife wondered what was wrong with me. And I always say sturgeon fishermen are the kind of guy, they're like a boxer. You don't pick your opponent because you think you're going to pummel him. You pick him because you're secretly scared that he's going to kick the crap out of you. We're looking for the battle that we can't win at the end of the day.
Yeah. That's a great way to look at it. You've had obviously some good years up there and some good days fishing. And maybe Mother Nature crammed a lot of the walleye and sturgeon fishing into just a short window there at the end. But how would you rate this spring versus other years that you've been up there fishing? Because it's gotta be one of the better years in recent memory.
So the walleye fishing was very good this year. The numbers were there. I will say, with the lack of flow, we're still seeing walleyes trickling into the river that are spawning. Sturgeon fishing, I had a couple of 29 and 30 inch walleyes the last few days that definitely were full of eggs.
Interesting.
So, and I think there again, Joe Henry mentioned about fish opener. You talk about fish opener. One of the great things about Lake of the Woods and its fish opener is we can fish sturgeon until May 15th. So you can come up here and you can snocker the crap out of walleyes just like you did this spring in April, and then decide, hey, man, I want to switch it up and go do something different. Or you can do them both at the same time because, like Joe said, vertical jigging is pretty key. So you can hit your spot lock and you can have 2 guys that are jigging alongside the boat. You can have 2 guys that are throwing out for sturgeon, and you could switch it up vice versa. So it's one of my favorite times of the year to go fishing. Actually, as far as the sturgeon goes, I think from the 10th to the 15th is going to be like that dynamite time for the fish being finally pushed in, because we've had this water temperature that just will not seem to budge. It's still anywhere from 45 to 49 degrees on any given day out there, the way it's been sounding. Again, I don't have a depth finder, so I have to ask my guests what the water temperature was, but I can just tell from the way the fish act on any given day. Like today, we finally got a couple of them to start jumping, and they've been jumping a little bit the last week, but usually they don't surface and boil as much if the water temperature is cool, especially if it's below 50 degrees. But once we get to that 50-degree number and upwards of 55 degrees, we're going to see some really aggressive fish. Their bites get a lot more aggressive. The last 3 days, every fish is pretty much folded in the rod holder before the guests could get it pulled out.
What?
You love to see that.
Yeah. We saw some big fish get caught a month ago. But it seems like some bigger fish have been caught recently. Do you think that's just pure luck, or do you think there's something to that of bigger fish being caught at a different time?
I think we're starting to see a bigger push of fish coming off the lake. Like even when you had the tournament going on up there, you were fishing in 4 Mile Bay.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that a lot of these because there's 2 separate populations of fish. There's a population that never leaves the river, just like walleyes. There's fish that never leave the river, and there's fish that come and go. They live on the lake and they come into the river to spawn and chasing emerald shiners, and then they go back out into the lake again. And I believe that these resident river fish, they follow the ice pack. So as it moves along, the warmest water is usually typically right at where the ice is eroding at. You got that turning effect going on. And that it seems like in the spring right away, when you talk about the guys pushing their boat across the ice to go in, well, I'm one of those guys, and I tie my boat to a tree and leave it there. And then I like to typically be within a mile of the ice pack if I can, to find the most active sturgeon bite.
Interesting. I hadn't heard that before.
And I feel like the Little Fork breaking, and even the lake starting to break up. If it takes for, like last year, the fish seemed like they kind of just were sporadically trickling in up until the very end of the season. Kind of like I feel this year is going to be with the water temperature the way it is. Those signifiers kind of tell fish to start coming back up into their natural spawning area where they're going to go to spawn, whether it be the Rapid River or the Sewell Rapids, Manitou, the Little Fork, or the Big Fork that they're spawning in. So we didn't have that. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, I guess that makes sense, because when you hear some of the tagging info, there's some fish that were tagged in 4 Mile Bay that get caught in 4 Mile Bay 20 years later. And then you hear about some that were, either tagged there and then caught way up in Canada somewhere, or out on the lake, or vice versa, things like that. So, I guess it makes sense that some of those big fish are just out there roaming in the basin, or maybe on the Canadian side somewhere, just cruising around, and they come back up in the spring.
One nice thing that I heard from the DNR is they're going to put tracking tags in the fish now, and they're going to have 6 or 8 buoys out on the lake and a pull behind transmitter. Oh. So we can see a little bit more of how these fish move, because I know that researchers like Lake Michigan, for instance, they move in a counterclockwise rotation around that lake. They don't go any other way around that lake, and they know that from tracking them. So I'd be interested to see exactly how and where they are at any given time on Lake of the Woods. Will be kind of impressive.
Oh,
they'll tell us a little more information.
Are they going to do that this year?
Joel might be able to give you some insight on that too. That is just one thing that we've heard at the lake management meetings, is that there was plans, it sounded like, to start doing it maybe as soon as this year.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I missed the last lake management meeting. I was fishing. Sorry.
That's funny. Well, when you talk about management, it's interesting that something can be this healthy. A fishery can be this healthy. Fishing can be this popular, yet it's only legal on half of that river. Were you worried at all about, this potential for sturgeon being protected on the U.S. side? And maybe this question for either one of you guys, but do you ever see Ontario opening up the Canadian side for sturgeon fishing?
Yeah, I was very worried, I guess, just because you never know what the outcome is going to be with this. We've seen the outcome with a few other species that have been put on the endangered species list. And honestly, it's the same outcome that I feel like the sturgeon in Canada. I don't want to get too political or anything with it, but it's hard to get them off of that list once they're put on that list. So, we really have to make sure that it is truly merited before we just decide, oh yeah, they're only 1% of what they were 100 years ago. But when you break it down in a decade thing, you start to see, oh, they doubled this year, they tripled here. What are they going to do in the next 10 years? I mean, it shows management is working, and we've invested millions of dollars in Minnesota into redoing what we will call a past wrong. Even it impressed me because the petition had a bunch of threats listed for the Red River back in 2018. Well, half of them had already been taken care of by this year, so they weren't even admissible as being on the petition anymore. It just goes to show that they're a slow growing fish, and they were commercial fished almost to extinction, and pollution didn't help them, and we wronged both of those rights, and now we're seeing the positive outcome that's coming from it, that they are very resilient and hardy fish as well.
Well, and if you talk about, what was that, 72, the Clean Water Act, and if you think that some of those fish are maybe 50, 60, 80 years old, some of these big fish that are getting caught right now probably could have been, born right after the Clean Water Act, basically. They could be products of that river cleanup. So I think I've been saying we're seeing kind of the good old days right now, and it sounds like it's just going to keep getting better and better. And, Joe, I've never been, I see the benefit of fishing with two lines once in a while. I've never been I just give me one rod. I don't need to be fishing two rods, depending on what I'm doing. And I don't know how many times we talked about it this spring up there, that it'd be nice to have a sturgeon rod out and then just jigging for walleyes with the other one right there.
Yeah, between that and pulling cranks, pulling cranks
for sure.
With different parts of the water column, different wobbles, different, But one thing I want to say too, it's interesting. Kevin, he's so passionate about sturgeon. Who wouldn't want to fish sturgeon with Kevin, right? And also very active as far as when there was a possibility of these sturgeon being put on the endangered species list. Kevin was a very active advocate, reaching out to. We had Congressman Stauber go up and actually visit Kevin, and he did a video and show support of not listing sturgeon on the endangered species list. And, Kevin was reaching out to other anglers, putting a lot of posts out, but just very active and very passionate about the sturgeon fishery. And, I think it's one of those things that, Kevin said it right. I came for the walleyes, but it's sturgeon really that hooked me. And when you start fishing sturgeon, it's not that difficult. The fight is, you have to experience it. You can't talk about it. They are so strong. And it's just a special fish. You look at that fish, they look prehistoric. We know they are. They look, the history, Bret, back in 1897 when there was commercial fishing going on, they commercial fished sturgeon. They netted them for about 5 years. And of course, they were netting sturgeon to get the roe, the caviar. And what they do is when they harvested them, they'd slice those sturgeon right down the bellies, get that caviar and stack them like cordwood. Then what they would do is they'd bring them via steamships, the caviar, up to Kenora, Ontario, because that's where the railroad lines would take that caviar to the big cities on the East Coast, the Boston, New York, Philadelphia, stuff, where there was a demand for caviar. So at one point in time, Lake of the Woods was putting out more caviar than anywhere in certainly North America, possibly the world. I don't know about that. So with that being said, eventually, and by the way, they take those carcasses. Some people would actually use those carcasses and burn them in their wood burning stoves back in the day. Wow. Well, between no more commercial fishing, commercial netting on Lake of the Woods, you talk about that Clean Water Act. Back in the day, there was so much pulp coming out of the paper mill, and they, things have greatly improved now. But there was so much pulp back in the day coming out of that paper mill that there's pictures of people going on shore, and you're sinking 3 feet into pulp on shore. Pulp coming down the river that if you're fishing, you had to clean your line every minute or so because there's so much junk in the water. Well, the DNR tells me they really think a lot of the spawning success for sturgeon back in that time was done in the tributaries because the tributaries didn't have the pollution. Well, it was not only the Clean Water Act, but also just after that, they put a bunch of teeth into the Clean Water Act to really enforce it. That's when things started improving for the sturgeon.
It's such a neat story and just a great one to talk about when you clean up a a body of water or a fishery like that, and just the benefits it can have, and not just the health benefits to the fish, but the economic benefits to the area. I mean, the amount of money that is coming out. And I know a lot of resorts, they like to have the spring to transition and get ready for summer, transition from winter, and now all these people are want to come up for sturgeon in addition to the walleye.
Well, Bret, you say it right, because it's kind of funny. We this is a show, right, like right now it's a shoulder season, a season that we don't have a lot of traffic up north, so we welcome everybody that comes up. Certainly, our whole community does. Yeah. With that being said, behind the scenes, there's kind of a little wink and a chuckles. Like, remember the days when we had this time off? Yeah. We didn't have people come, but at the same time, we'll certainly take it. And it's Kevin, it's become a tradition, hasn't it? Sturgeon fishing up on the Rainy River and Lake of the Woods.
Yeah, it's a tradition for most people, and they just like a family heritage almost. You just keep passing it on from generation to generation. Like I said, your wolf pack gets bigger and bigger every year, and I think it's one of the fastest facets of fishing in Minnesota growing right now. And you got to see a trend with other things. The burbot has become very popular. Even the bowfin and the carp are becoming more popular for this exotic, we'll call it, kind of thrill, the fight.
The tug is the drug. Yeah, the tug is the drug, as they say. And man, once you start catching big fish, as much fun as it is to go catch a limit of eater walleyes or something for a fish fry, and it is still fun trying to trick a walleye. But since we've been going up north into Canada to catch big lake trout, and you start catching 30, 40 pound fish, and that's what you're targeting consistently. It's the same thing as going to the Rainy for sturgeon. You're just trying to catch the biggest fish in the lake, or the biggest fish in the river, and do battle with it. You don't want to fish for small fish anymore after you do that.
Right, sturgeon and lake trout are probably two very comparable things. I had a guy describe to me about ice fishing lake trout one time. How could you want to catch a walleye after you catch a lake trout? Is what he said to me, and I kind of correlate the same way with the sturgeon. After you get that, like you said, the tug is your drug. That's about the most tug you're ever going to feel.
That's right.
So, Kevin, one of the things we talk about, it is a keep season right now, and there's different times you can keep sturgeon. You can keep one per calendar year. Cooking them. I know that most people smoke sturgeon, but how else do people cook sturgeon and eat it?
So the traditional way is smoke, but I get a lot of guests from Wisconsin especially, and I just had a guest that caught a keeper the other day, and he went home and he cleaned it all up very nicely and washed it thoroughly, and then he sauteed it in garlic, herbs, and butter, and he said it turned out very delicious. He said he had some that had some stomach lining that he cleaned off that he did not care for right away. But once he cleaned it up properly, it tasted delicious, he said. And others will deep fry them, cut them up into like chunks and deep fry it up, and they will bake it, poach it, and roast it. So, I mean, there's a plethora of ways that people will enjoy it. I've had some people even compare it to like how you cook halibut. In certain ways, like a halibut steak, you could sear it on each side on the grill.
Well, because the texture of it is almost like a steak. People kind of say it's like a steak, more like a fish steak, isn't it?
Yeah. So a lot of guys, like you say, when you don't fillet a sturgeon, you butcher it. Is by the end of it is what you're doing. You got to get that spinal cord out of there to make sure that you don't taint any of the meat. There are guys that will fillet it without taking the spinal cord out. You just don't want to nick that. And then as far as bones go, there's no bones in it. It's all cartilage. So you clean all the cartilage and all the fat off. That's because it is a very fattening fish. There's some red meat that you want to get off of it as well too, from what guys have told me. And then you just wash it thoroughly and you can cook it a plethora of ways.
When you clean a sturgeon, is there a certain trick to it? Are you just following the bones around, or is it hard to talk about because you just got to see it, or what's it like?
Yeah, so like actually a lot of people up here, unless they're going to consume it here, they just gill it and gut it and bring it. They'll either keep it on ice, or we do have a freezer that they'll put it in. I'll even get guys that'll freeze them whole, and then they'll take care of the whole process when they get home, because it has to be measurable, intact for transport.
For travel. And I should say too that if you're gonna keep a sturgeon, it's got to be 45 to 50 inches or over 75. inches. You got to be fishing during the keep season, and there's different segments of time you can do that. And you have to purchase a $5 sturgeon tag, because if you do get one, you got to tag it just like a deer, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And you want to make sure that if you're going to keep one, that you're the one who catches it too, because you cannot party fish sturgeon. There can't be one tag for 4 guys in a boat. So my recommendation is always, if you're looking for a keeper, spend the $5 per guy and make sure that you have that tag, because after you catch it and you process it, you can all enjoy it, you know, or vice versa, whatever have you. But there have been people who have gotten tickets because they caught a fish and their buddy tagged it. So you just want to make sure that you're following the rules as much as possible. We actually had a lady that didn't know that you needed a tag to keep one, and she got back to the landing and the DNR was there. Fortunately, her fish swam away, but it still was a hefty fine, and I think a gross misdemeanor to possess that fish without a tag. And had it died, it would be a low-level felony, because they are a federally protected fish. So, and like you say, something as simple as a $5 tag is not that hard to go get. I carry zip ties in my tackle box.
A lot of people just catch and release. They don't want to keep them. They just, and if you don't have to buy a tag unless you intend to keep it. And so let's say you have this fish, you tag it. It's gutted, it's gilled, so you can bring it home. They can still measure it if they stop you on the road. You get it home, and now you're going to clean it. Where do you start?
So a lot of guys will cut around the head and the tail, and then you kind of twist and you pull, and you hope that spinal cord comes out. If it doesn't come out with the head, you turn around, you try with the tail. Otherwise, you have to get like a pliers and pull. I will say the spinal cord is 4 times as long as the fish is.
Oh,
so
really?
It's stacked up. It's stacked up in there on top of itself. So yeah, let's say 45-inch fish. I'm not that great at math, but it's 200 and some inches of spinal cord that's in there. May sound gross. My kid actually used it as a jump rope the one time that we did it. It's so big, but it's done. And it kind of resembles like casing for brats, I guess is what I'll say when you get it out. But you want to make sure that you get that out. Other guys will fillet it just like kind of like a fish, like a walleye. You just want to make sure that you don't get into that spine. And then once they get it off, you cut out that cartilage ribs, and you cut her out. Like a lot of guys will leave a little bit on the fillet itself, because that's usually that red meat is on the bottom, that fatty red meat's on there. And clean that up, and then you kind of chunk it up, and you can. I had guys that do strips with it, so it ends up being like chicken nuggets. The guy called it. It's chicken nuggets, he says, and it was pretty good actually, so it wasn't that bad. Well, I do prefer it smoked and then pressure canned. I got a buddy that does a really good job on it, so we get to enjoy that while we sit out and soak bait, hoping to catch the state record.
Speaking of state record, they have that catch and release season in Minnesota, and I know that we had the record, and then the St. Croix River took it over. And some of the size of those fish you're talking about, would those fish with the length and girth, would they have qualified for the state record?
So yeah, I'd have to look at how the catch and release record goes exactly, but I always say that we have definitely caught a fish that probably was heavier than what the current catch and release state record is. So if it's by weight off of a girth and length chart, then definitely we have caught the state record this year a couple times over for sure, because even that 73-inch fish with a 40-inch girth, I mean, you're talking probably pushing upwards of 130 to 150 pound fish easily.
Kevin, for what it's worth, for that DNR catch and release record now, if you get a tape measure on its length and you get one around the widest girth and you get pictures of it and you got at least one witness, you can fill a form out, on the DNR and submit those pictures. And it would be fun to get that honor back to the Rainy River, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be, and it definitely is coming. So if it doesn't happen this year, but I've only seen bigger and bigger fish being caught every year that were up here. Like I said, that 77 and that 76-incher, and then the girths of those 273-inch fish that I heard about being caught by the Big Fork River were pretty insane. 38 and 40-inch girth is nothing to scoff at.
Yeah. Well, I'm I'm just trying to look up here while you guys are talking. Thanks, Joe, for just taking over the show here for a couple of minutes. I appreciate it.
I think I can do for you, but you know what? And I was going to say too. I think one of the side benefits of cleaning those sturgeon, you get that sturgeon oil. Some guys will rub that on their mustaches and give them a real robust, longer mustache.
What's the website to buy a tag? I'm buying one right now.
Sounds like you already have.
On the DNR's website there. And even the slime, is good for the skin.
Perfect.
Okay, I finally found it. So I was trying to find the catch dates, the harvest dates. So it looks like April 24th through May 7th.
Correct.
And then July 1st through September 30th.
Yes.
And then every other time it's catch and release or closed May 16th through June 30th.
Yeah, that it is. So I will say, though, if May 16th falls on a Sunday, I believe, it is still open that 16th. Then you can still fish them on that day. As long as it falls on a weekend, I believe is how that works. So don't quote me on that. This year it won't fall on a weekend. May 15th is the middle of the week, I believe, or something like that. So May 15th will be the end day. They always got to throw some little side notes in there for you. So you're like, dang it, I could have fished them today.
Yeah.
The Dutchman told me I could.
I am adamant. Joe is at the lake management meetings. I am stressing for trying to get I don't see why there couldn't be a year-round catch and release season myself, actually, because there are a lot of years that they do spawn before May 15th, so it isn't necessarily protecting the spawn. And catch and release has been proven to have no effect on the fish. So it would be nice to eventually, maybe someday, see a year-round catch and release season. So, and as they progressively get more ice fished, the opportunity to have maybe that keep season extend into the first of the year some point in time. I don't know if it'll ever happen. Would be nice too, because then you got that really cold water opportunity to keep a sturgeon. I feel like fish are always better in the coldest water possible. So it might open.
What water temperature do they spawn in?
Somewhere around 55 degrees is when they spawn. So like with the walleyes, we're seeing that there's varying temperatures there as to when they'll spawn too as well.
Well, then Kevin, talk about how it's almost like a little side attraction when the sturgeon are spawning in the Rapid River and other places. There's a lot of people that'll go down and watch them. You can see them; they're stacked, huge fish. They're stacked, aren't they?
Yeah, it's kind of a phenomenon that people it blows you away. I mean, the first year we moved up here with the low water, which we kind of have some low water going on again. Now it's went up a little bit in the last few days with the little bit of rain that we have had, but we were sitting somewhere around 5 feet low at the beginning of the spring season on the river itself, and they may have trouble getting up like into the Rapid River. So they're going to be all stacked up at the base of it, and they'll look like a bridge that you can walk across, literally sturgeon bridge going on out there, and you see some truly massive fish in that pile of them. It's some of the most shared videos that I put on Facebook are usually of the sturgeon spawn when it's happening. It's just kind of a cool thing that if you haven't seen it in person, I don't think you truly lived. I guess you should get up and try.
It'd be pretty neat.
Kevin, the DNR in conjunction with the OMNR and some other organizations up in Canada, they came together and estimated that we have approximately 100,000 sturgeon from about Morrison, Ontario, down through the Northwest Angle, through the basin, through the Rainy River, about 100,000 sturgeon over 40 inches long. And I'll tell you what, I can tell you that I talked to a lot of pike spearers. In fact, one of them I had to call you. They were spearing pike, and the number of huge sturgeon they see going through their spear holes on the lake throughout the winter is just unbelievable.
Yeah, he said he saw more pike or more sturgeon than he did pike while he was spearing, actually, most of the winter. So it's kind of a cool thing to see. I mean, it's just yet more proof that the management is working that we're doing, and that these fish are resilient. I mean, they're at least 150 million years old. They've seen many different extinction periods in life and managed to survive them, and yet they saw nearly their own extinction, and they've managed to overcome it. And I think they will be the true giants of the sea again out here, and they will rule. They were on the lake, you know, at some point.
One of the things we talked about at the management meeting was how they're going to be up on the Rainy River getting stripping sturgeon of their eggs. And they take those eggs and they bring them down to one of the hatcheries in Minnesota. They get them to be little sturgeon, little, I don't know if they call them fingerlings or what they call them, but then that's what they take and put in other bodies of water. That whole story has been going very well too. I mean, there's other bodies of water in Minnesota that are showing incredible success. We talked about how they've found some 50-inch sturgeon already on Lacapar Lake, which is out by you, Bret.
Yeah, Big Stone. They started putting them in Big Stone, and then they kind of filtered down, and between that and what's connected to the Red River, Ottertail, they're finding sturgeon all over the place now. They've taken out some dams, and they're hearing about quite a bit of movement from those fish too. Some that have gone, from Ottertail County up into Canada. So they're pretty amazing fish, really, when you think about it. So.
They truly are. Like I said, they have many different ways to fish themselves, like hunt for food. They smell when they need to. I think they can see very well when they need to. They'll slam that jig when you're jigging that jig, and they'll chase all kinds of different baits, and they will make it through, and they'll show us exactly how strong they are in the end here, I think.
Kevin, I've heard of people when we see sturgeon that suspend. We see sturgeon jumping a lot or breaching, as they'd say. And then I've even talked to people that have seen sturgeon swimming at about a 45-degree angle with their mouths open, taking in shiners.
Yeah. I've had guys down south Mississippi, St. Croix and stuff that have been tip-up fishing with suckers suspended on the column, and they've caught sturgeon before. So they definitely have predatory habits in them. They'll feed any way that they can. I'm adamant that one of the reasons our sturgeon get as thick and as big as they do up here is that we have many bug hatches that happen out on the lake. It's wintertime and throughout the summer months, and that's a major source of protein for them. They can go out there with their Hoover vacuum mouth and just suck up pounds and pounds and pounds of it. So I do think that's how they get their girth compared to some other bodies of water in Minnesota where they're not as thick as the girls that we got up here are.
I'm not touching that one. That's on to you.
Why do you guys think sturgeon jump and breach? What's your hypothesis on that, Kevin?
I have had a lot of people ask me. I think there's a lot of reasons. It's the same reason we drive our car, I guess. I mean, sometimes to go to work, sometimes for fun. They could be trying to roll lamprey off. I've had people tell me that they're eating bugs and other stuff suspended in the water column, which I don't understand why they have to jump 5 feet out of the water to do that. I do truly think they're doing it for fun sometimes. I think because they can, but they might be breathing air. Rolling lamprey off is another one that I've heard people say as well. But
I've heard people say that they do a lot of feeding on the bottom and they're knocking crap out of their gills.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
Who knows, right?
Yeah, that could be. Like I said, sometimes you see some of them and they launch themselves so far out of the water that you can't be they got to be thinking, yes! Yeah.
New record. Did you guys see me?
Personal best.
Yeah, right.
It's funny that you say that because I just used the Google machine real quick, and there was a study on Gulf sturgeon in Florida, and they think it's hypothesized that jumping is a form of group communication that serves to maintain group cohesion. So they're doing it to let each other know.
I don't doubt it at all, because it seems like they do it in groups. You know what I mean? Like dancing the marionette at times out there, the way that they're just all boiling around all over and they're playing their little part. So, but I just always tell people there's probably a lot of reasons why they're doing it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
I mean, I don't know why nobody just asks them.
I've tried many times. I ask them very nicely to eat my hook. Because the reality of it is, as hot as sturgeon fishing can be, it can be a lot of sitting around too.
Oh, yeah.
So I've got a few phone calls from my neighbor wondering if I'm still in the boat because I fell asleep out there.
Well, that's why you bring a grill or maybe a cooler of cold beverages and sit back and relax. And it's such a fun way to hang out with some buddies.
Kevin, and to your point, this is kind of interesting. You said it before. You can fish sturgeon. If the forks break and that water's like chocolate milk, you can still catch sturgeon. And then on top of it, you can also get them at night.
Oh, yeah. Some of my best times have come at night. And honestly, people ask me, is night better than day? And I say sometimes yes, sometimes no. The one thing I'll say in the spring is usually the wind lays down at night. And that can be one of the biggest keys to your success is being able to have boat control. If you're bouncing all over the place and your bait's dragging around everywhere, you're not only going to have to reel in your lines to check your bait more often because you might not have seen all the bait stealer bites that you can have out there. And it's just not staying in one place long enough for a sturgeon to come up and eat it and find it at times. So it can make or break your success on some days. So I go out some days when it's a heavy northwest wind, and I tell myself all I need is a miracle because it's going to be that tough to keep the boat controlled out. You just can't get out of the wind anyway.
When you're fishing an area with a lot of bait stealers, you talked about using a cut up piece of sucker. That's something those bait stealers can't get off as easy as night crawlers and shiners. Have you ever heard of using anything else, any artificials for sturgeon or anything scent related?
So I know guys will use belly rub and other products like that, any scent that they possibly can think. I've had guys tell me they put hot sauce on their stuff. I don't know if that does anything or not. They catch fish though, so I mean it can't hurt, right? Put some Franks on there. Guys will use a lot of different stuff, but at the end of the day, if you're going to go out with two things, I recommend night crawlers and shiners for sure to have on hand because them have been tried and true over and over again. There have been times when cut sucker has outperformed all of them though, and you could kind of accommodate, like you said, big baits for pike. You can cut a big piece of sucker and your bites may substantially go down, but the fish that you're going to catch are going to be the ones that you're looking for at the end of the day. So I've had buddies that have used a 3x3 piece of cut up meat on there. Like you said, for certain there's scent on there. They can sit, click away at it. Other fish can bite on it all they want. We've actually had a lot of surprise big northern pike that are coming out of the spawn as well at that moment in time, and they're looking for a dead piece of bait laying there to get some energy back into them. So, and you get a pleasant reward with a 40-inch pike on the end of your line. Oh, geez, what's that?
That's fun is what that is.
Yeah, they are.
When you talk about those bait stealers, not this year, but last year, there was one day in our tournament, I think every boat caught a burbot, and they were probably only about this big. But, I mean, do you see a lot of them in the river?
Oh, heck yes, especially at night. I mean, some nights. And then they're masters at hitting it, but not moving. You see a did-it in your rod, and you'll actually pick it up and you'll pull it ahead, and you don't feel anything, and you'll set it down, and you'll see did-it again, and you'll pick it up and pull it in and set it down. After about 4 times of that, you'll reel it in, and you'll realize, oh, hey, I do got a fish in here. Oh, it's hardly heavier than my weight, and he has it buried.
Been there the whole time. Is there been?
We've had a lot of bullheads this year, actually, too, in the river that have been. My buddy said, I'm going to take you to the honey hole. We caught 27 bullheads, and I said, the honey hole sucks. We got to get out of here.
Do you, just going back to burbot real quick, I mean, do you ever see any with any size, or has that population been increasing, or have they always been there like that?
So last night we actually got one that I would have potentially ate. It was 21 or 22 inches. But most of the time in the spring, no, I do not see any of any real significant size. Now in the wintertime, early ice and whatnot on the rainy when we're targeting sturgeon, we do catch a lot of bycatch is burbot, and a lot of them are that 20 to 25 inch, 19, 25 inch range, which to me, I deep fry a lot of burbot. So those are the perfect deep frying fish right there. You get the nice thinner loins that you can roll in some dry batter and throw in the oil, and they're tasty. Oh, they're good as poor man's lobster, but it's rich eating it that way all the time. So we deep fry a lot of them. Oh,
but it never gets old putting stuff in butter. Come on.
It doesn't, but it gets filling after a while. So
for sure.
Just like beer batter, Ken, too. When you eat fish once a week, you tend to try to find a few different ways to eat it so that not hating it, but like, oh God, I got to eat fish again.
Well, it's interesting here, like depending on who gets to the kitchen first or who gets hungry first. If Dan cooks fish, he fries it up. If I cook it, I throw it in the oven and I bake it, kind of the same coating, but I've been a fan of throwing it in the oven. It's simple, it's easy, it's not as messy. You can get it maybe not quite as crispy, but crispy enough. And so that's what.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Throw some vegetables and potato or something alongside of it, and you got yourself a good meal going on.
Absolutely.
You talk about eating fish all the time, and when you live on the Rainy River and you're a guide and a resort owner. I mean, I had a resort owner recently tell me, "Why in the heck would you ever want to screw up a good cast iron pan by throwing walleye in there and poisoning it when you can put a good steak in there?" Well, I mean, you've been on Lake of the Woods for about 50 years. I had another guy. I was doing a shore lunch with him, and we did a real nice shore lunch for the customers. Fried fish, potatoes, beaners, the whole ball of wax, delicious. And then he's blackening some pike for himself at the very end and wolfing that down. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He goes, got to remember, I guide 6 days a week. I was just to the doctor. Fish fry every day is not good for the cholesterol.
Yeah.
That's where I was going to say this. So the guys on the charter boats that do the shore lunches were the ones that, because I'm like, oh, I love me a beer batter. He goes, try eating beer batter 6 days a week. And he does all kinds of dry rubs that he has. But he's like, I can hardly eat the fish 6 days a week that I got to eat. He says, if I had beer batter every day, I'd be bloated and dead by now. But yeah, it's one of those things hard to fathom not wanting to eat the walleyes. But when you get it such a routinely eaten thing, I think too much of a good thing is a bad thing. It doesn't matter what it is. So, we eat a lot of different types of fish. So we eat a lot of northern. We'll eat a lot of the burbot. We eat a lot of. We don't eat the smallmouth. I will say that, but I don't care for smallmouth bass. But we eat a lot of the northern and burbot and walleye and sauger and our one sturgeon a year that we're allowed.
Well, we got a video from a couple of years ago. Was it the first year we did the tournament? Must have been 3 years ago, where we baked a sucker at up there that one of the guys caught on the river, because that was the only fish we could keep, I guess, that got caught. So Corey Loeffler cooked up a sucker for us and wasn't bad. I'll be honest.
So it is a white flaky meat, and we do get people that come and stay at the resort for the sucker run. I'll get calls. Are the suckers running yet? And you're thinking in your head, what the heck is he mean? I mean, and you're thinking maybe he's wondering if he's going to have a bunch of bait stealers sturgeon fishing, but no. And what they'll do, and they actually cooked some for me, is they'll grind them up and make fish patties out of them, add a little cornmeal and stuff like that to them. And I can tell you, for a fish burger, it was not a bad fish burger at all. So.
I know some people that take those suckers and they score them, with their knife crossways, put a bunch of seasoning on them and bake them, and they just love them. Kevin, that sucker run? When's that sucker run normally going on? And if a person wanted to come up and take advantage of that sucker run, where would they be fishing?
So usually you're going to fish. The Rapid River is a pretty popular area for when the suckers are running. I don't know exactly. I think from May 1st to May 15th or something like that, you can actually go down there with your net, dip it in the rapid, and just wait for them to come down the rapids. And there's no limit on them and whatnot. But a lot of guys will go out and hook a line, fish them while they're trying to catch sturgeon as well at the same time. But usually the first part of May is your best opportunity to come in and get in on that. And I know a lot of people. I had a lady in town that gave me something that she put in barbecue sauce and canned. It wasn't bad. I would say that much. It wasn't bad at all. So.
Well, didn't we have that? We had some sucker that somebody.
Yep. Yeah, in a can. I don't know how they did it, but yeah, it's in a can. It's in the fridge. It's pretty good.
We still have some.
Tasted like pork.
Kevin, it sounds like a lot of people eat bullheads, and bullheads coming out of that cold water. I mean, sounds like you got the spot to catch them anyway.
All right, well, so pretty much, if you want bullheads, the Bret River and the Winter Road River and Wabonica Creek areas can be in the spring and the fall a plethora of bullheads. And as far as bullheads go, I think we have state record bullheads that year, because some of them that I caught the other day were pushing 15 inches long, the big yellow ones that we had. And I can say I graduated with a guy who went to school in Alexandria, and he'd catch bullheads, and he'd put them on the smoker, and it was very good smoked fish as well. put them on there, gut them and put them on their hole. You just peel that skin off, and they got them big bones on them, so you can peel that meat right out, and it's very good to eat. So,
what they say, when in Rome, do as the Romans, and you get to southern Minnesota, Iowa specifically, and they don't have all the opportunities we do with walleyes, and they love the heck out of those bullheads.
A lot of bullhead feeds going on in a lot of small towns and county fairs. And I think that's one of the knocks on, if you want to call them rough fish. I know they're starting to not call them rough fish. They're calling them native fish now. But the bones are the issue. The meat isn't bad to eat. You just got to get around those bones a lot of times. And I've eaten a lot of rough fish that taste fine. You just sometimes got to deal with some bones. And I guess smoking them is the way to do it. But
right, or like the guys that grind them, because once you grind them bones up, they're non-existent at that point in time, and then they make the fish patties out of them. And like I said, they're very good baked. I know guys that will even do that with northerns because they don't know how to clean them boneless. So I have a very good way for cleaning northern that gets all the bones out of it, and then we either bake or deep fry them up as well. So
pike's delicious.
Well, look at the progression of eel pout and bourbon. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's it wasn't that long ago. People throw them on the ice, and you'd see the ravens or the eagles eating them, And boy, now people come up and they're walleye fishing, but they'll say, "Hey, man, I hope I get one of those burbot while we're here. It'd be kind of fun to try one."
I think 2 years ago that was all the rave on the Lake of the Woods fishing Facebook page was, "I'm coming up to catch the state record burbot," and I'm thinking about something. Good for you. Go ahead.
The last few state records have come from Lake of the Woods, and I think right now it's at about 19.5 pounds.
That's insane.
Yeah, there's some true giants to be had out there. My boy loves catching them. He loves rubbing the slime all over himself. And then 2 days later, we're driving around in the truck, and I'm wondering what the heck stinks so bad, and it's his coat.
They're fun to catch, just like every other big fish out there. And, I was going to say one other thing. I knew some guys that used to come up for sturgeon in the spring and walleye too, but I think they were mainly trying to catch sturgeon. But they'd bring a pontoon, and they'd bring a cover for it. And then they would just anchor up out in the river and just sleep on the pontoon and just fish all day and all night. Just spend 3 days on the river. They'd never touched dry land, I don't think, for 3 days. So
you'll see a lot of makeshift shelters on boats out there, and you'll hear generators running at night sometimes. Yeah, it's one of those deals, especially after walleye season closes in Cochin County over there. It can look like there's a bunch of traveling gypsies rolling through the county because there's a lot of state easement land alongside of the Rainy River where people just pull off and pitch a tent and they camp. And if they don't have a boat, they'll just fish right from shore right there. And it's a pretty cool sight to see. Just randomly driving along and like, oh, there's a band of gypsies there. There's a band of gypsies there. And you know what they're all doing.
Sturgeon
anglers. They're all chasing the state record.
That's right. Well, we did see a boat this year during our tournament that had a pop-up ground blind. Like a deer hunting blind in there. What kind of boat was that, Dan? Do you remember what kind of boat that?
Some walleye boat. I don't know. They're staying out of the rain.
It was brilliant.
It was raining, and so they threw that up, and they could just stick their rods right out of it. They're anchored up in a hole, and they were fishing. We weren't.
I'm impressed that they got that thing to fit in there.
Well, it was a big boat.
I feel like with the Dutchman's luck, that thing one big wind would have come up, and that would have been that for the thing. We'd been sitting out there. Well, I guess we're getting wet now.
Right. I got some buddies who they come up like the Wednesday or Thursday before the Minnesota fishing opener, and they fish sturgeon for a couple of days, and that rolls them right into Saturday the fishing opener. Then they fish walleyes for 2 days. You want to talk about a fun trip, and they always catch their fish. The sturgeon, I mean.
Yeah, the sturgeon in the last few days has really started to pick up. Like I said, the bites are getting a lot more aggressive. And I think we're going to see a lot more fish congregated and stacked up more in their traditional pre-spawn grounds that we're seeing, that they're making one big wave up into getting ready to do their thing here.
Well, guys, we could sit and probably talk about this all day long because I think we all enjoy it and know how much fun it is. But we'll let you get back. You're probably busy up there right now and probably had a full day on the water already today, I bet, Kevin.
Yeah, that I have. But like my wife says, never not fishing is more than just a statement with me. So I'll probably find myself back out there again yet by the end of the day.
There you go.
Mustache, you should jump in the boat. We'll show you how to really fight one.
I could use it.
hey, we got a new nickname for Daddy.
Yeah, mustache.
Ready, now we call him Mustache.
I think the second one's better.
The Dutchman likes nicknames. Everybody pretty much gets one when you come to the resort. You come enough time.
I love it. Well, we've been talking about maybe trying to get up that way right around the opener. So, maybe we'll be in touch. I'm sure you're busy, but maybe we'll be in touch to see if we can stop by at least, or maybe jump on the warship with you one of the afternoons there or one of the mornings, and see if we can't do battle with one of those big prehistoric dinosaurs up there in the Rainy River.
Hey, I'll hold you to it. I think that's going to be one of the best times that the season has to come. We'll see some true giants stacked up. So
cool. Can't wait. All right. Kevin Heinrichs, the Royal Dutchman on the Rainy River. One more time, where do we find you online?
You can find me at royaldutchman.com, or you can find us at Royal Dutchman's Facebook page. That's probably the best one. That's the one I use the most for most everything. So.
Very cool. All right. And of course, Joe Henry, thanks for being on the show with us, guys. Thanks for joining us this week. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week on Sporting Journal Radio.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.